Hello guys, it's Saturday and that means it's time for me to talk about an episode of a superhero animated television show. Today I will be talking about the second season episode of the Legion of Superheroes cartoon titled Who Am I? I will be spoiling this episode, so if you don't like spoilers, then keep that in mind in the next few seconds before I start summing up plot details. This episode begins with a plan to have Chameleon Boy infiltrate ImperieX's army pretending to be the Persuader, but the Legion is afraid that he cannot act like the Persuader, so they download information from the real Persuader's head and put it in Chameleon Boy's head so that he thinks he is the real deal. But then the real Persuader escapes from Legion custody and somehow finds Chameleon Boy at ImperieX's place, and then there's the classic confusion of who's the real deal and who's the imposter. The Legion comes in and rescues Cam, but they run into a problem when restoring Cam's original personality does not work. But as soon as this is fixed, they run into another problem. Superman is actually the shapeshifter from the Legion of Supervillains, Ron Carr. The Legion finds out that Imperiex was never fooled by Chameleon Boy and was feeding him and the Legion false information. They find out he is targeting Durla, Chameleon Boy's homeworld. Even though Ron Carr is a villain, he still wants to help stop the destruction of Durla. During the big climax, Imperiex restores Ron Carr's original personality, and while Carr at first goes back with Imperiex, leaving the Legion behind, he has second thoughts and he destroys the main missile, leaving all of the others useless. This saves Durla, and it leaves the Legion wondering if Ron Carr was just suffering from the side effects of being Superman, or if he had some innate goodness within him all along. And if that was the case, then does this mean that the Legion themselves have innate evil inside them as well? End of episode. So this is a pretty solid episode all around, I think. It still has some problems, like the overall storyline with Imperiex, which I am vastly losing patience with. I think at this point, if I was to go back and rewatch everything in this season, I'd really only have a problem with the season premiere. That episode made Imperiex seem like such a deadly threat. He was somehow single-handedly responsible for absolutely destroying the 41st century. And when he escaped to the 31st century, the Legion and the Superman clone were acting like this was the worst thing ever, and he had to be stopped pronto before he made any changes to the timeline. Now, half a season later, he is about as threatening as a baby with no teeth. Most of the episodes of this season haven't even featured Imperiex in any way. The most those episodes will do is mention that there is an ongoing fight with Imperiex. And then in the episodes where we do see Imperiex, he doesn't do anything. He's got a bunch of Dominator soldiers working for him now, and somehow that has made him weaker, as the Legion has been able to defeat him every time he does something in this season. I've been complaining about every episode of this season that has pretended like things are business as usual, and yeah, that's a problem, as those episodes are ignoring the premise set forth by the season premiere. But I think also the problem lies in the season 2 premiere in trying to set up a premise that was impossible to follow through with a Saturday morning cartoon that was intended for children. I feel like this is relevant here because the Legion seemingly know where Imperiex is, or at the very least, they know how to program Chameleon Boy so that he can find Imperiex. So they can easily find his headquarters, and they don't think it's a good idea to gather every single one of their allies and storm his fortress and take him down? Or, on the other side of things, why is Imperiex biding his time sitting on some throne while the Dominators do everything? Allegedly, capturing Durla will give them strategic advantage, but all I'm seeing is a Dr. Claw-esque villain who fails in every single attempt to conquer stuff, and then says, "Shucky darn, maybe next time I'll win." I know I've complained about this in most of the episodes of this season, but I will keep on complaining until this problem will be solved, which I can't imagine that will be happening anytime soon. Moving on to some things that are a little more specific to this episode, I really like the idea of a shapeshifter losing any and all sense of self-identity. That's a very heavy topic, and it bears a lot more exploration than what it gets here. I do think it gets shafted a little bit in this episode, but honestly, I just don't think there is any way that this kind of subject matter could have been done, air quotes, right in just 22 minutes. This seems more like something that could be thoroughly explored in a full-length science fiction novel. But considering the brevity of the episode, I think that it is handled okay. I do think that the idea of losing self-identity could have been handled better if it had just been Chameleon Boy or Ron Carr. So even though I really loved the reveal that Superman was actually Ron Carr, seriously, that was a high point for this series for me when that happened, just for the purposes of exploring a certain theme for this episode, I think the episode itself would have worked out better if it had just focused on Chameleon Boy trying to regain who he is. Speaking of exploration of theme, I do think this episode tries to wrap things up by being extremely heavy-handed. I didn't really need the Legion pontificating on whether everyone in the galaxy is good or evil at heart, especially when, at least as far as I could tell, that wasn't even the point of this episode. I thought that the episode was about finding who you are, which I guess everyone being good or evil at heart is related to that, but it's also taking that broad theme and making it less broad, which I don't really like that. There's very little else here that I have to say, to be honest. It's a pretty great episode, and its only real fault that I have with it is that it's part of a larger storyline that is nothing like what we were promised in the pilot episode of this season. It probably could have done a better job of exploring the character of Chameleon Boy or Ron Carr, but as is, I think that's forgivable because this episode does quite a bit already. So those are my thoughts, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you liked this review as well. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you did like this video, I'll be back next Saturday to talk about an episode of Batman the Animated Series. And the following Saturday, I'll be back here to talk about another episode of the Legion of Superheroes. And don't forget to come check out my other videos throughout the rest of the week. Until then, have a great day. Catch you later.